In this video, I will explain how to set up the third class specialization of the Rogue class, the Arcane Trickster, as provided by the player's handbook. Additionally, I will also go through the process of setting up any features that are actionable as we go through each of the levels. While there is a new character wizard that is available within Fantasy Ground, it is not yet able to handle taking an existing character and applying any levels to that character. As such, we still have to go through this process the old-fashioned way. Additionally, while there are other class specializations for the Rogue class, I'm only covering those that are initially provided by the player's handbook for this particular part of the series. So we'll get to those other ones at a later time. Once again, as you go through the process of leveling, you're going to want to make sure that you check a couple of things. And what those things are is to make sure that your hit points, your hit die, and your proficiency bonuses are increasing over time. Additionally, you'll want to make sure that your dexterity saving throw and your intelligence saving throws are increasing because they are directly affected by your proficiency bonus. All of your skills here should also slowly increase over time because they are also directly affected by your proficiency bonus. And finally, you'll want to make sure that new abilities are looked over and linked to your actions tab. So we'll be covering all of that in this particular video series. The last thing you'll want to look at is specifically within your actions tab, and that is going to be your sneak attack skill, because as you level up, if you recall from the previous two videos, if you watched them, your sneak attack will increase over time based on every second odd level, so third, fifth, seventh, so on and so forth. So with all of that covered, let's begin the process of applying our Arcane Trickster specialization. There are two ways you can actually go about doing that. There are probably more, but right now I will cover two. The first method is to take this icon on your Rogue class sheet here, click it with the left mouse button and hold that left mouse button down and then drag it over top of this class and level section where it says Rogue 2. You can just drop it into place, and what will happen is you will be prompted for your class specialization. And as you can see, these are the other classes that I said existed. So I'm just going to click OK. And that is going to apply all of these features to this particular character, including increasing the hit points, increasing the hit die, not increasing the proficiency bonus, but we do have to add one additional hit die of damage to our sneak attack skill here. So let's modify that first. Additionally, this particular character is also going to acquire some rather unique features that were different from the rogue classes we've covered thus far. And one of those features is the ability to cast spells. As you can see here, at third level, you gain the ability to cast cantrips and Arcane Trickster related spells. And what that means is that you are actually restricted to a certain degree on the types of spells that you can cast. For the most part, you will be stuck with enchantment and illusions related spells. However, at certain levels, such as I believe it's 8, 14, and 20, you can choose a spell that's outside of those particular two schools. In relation to the cantrips, you will be given Mage Hand right off the get-go, and you get to choose 2 additional ones from the wizard spell list. However, all of the spells that you can actually use, including cantrips, are already conveniently listed within this Arcane Trickster's spell listing, so you don't have to go anywhere for it. So let's go through the process of actually linking our spells into place. And I'm going to start off with this Mage Hand cantrip. But wait, that's now under the Rogue grouping. Hang on a minute. I did that intentionally. And I did that just to showcase one of the things I was mentioning in one of the previous videos, was that spells will drop into the group that you've essentially hovered over and dropped them into. Powers, however, don't, and I don't understand the reason for that. I've never been able to get a good explanation for it, and I honestly don't know why. But you want to be careful when you're dropping spells into place. So there's a little trick that I use that helps me avoid that. And what that is to make sure that I have a fairly large, clear zone to drop spells into. And I do that simply by reducing the length of these categories by clicking on this particular icon here. Now if I drop Mage Hand into place, it should drop under cantrips grouping properly, which is what I wanted. And I'll go back now and just delete this one from here. Alright, so I've got that in place. What about the other cantrips? Well, you're always going to want something that does a little bit of damage as a cantrip. Because if you totally get disarmed, don't have any weapons, you've already gone through all of your other spells, well, that's going to be a problem. You don't have any offensive capabilities unless you start picking up rocks off the ground and flinging them that way, and that is an option. Don't get me wrong. But I like Firebolt. I've always liked that spell. I don't know why. It just seems to work. And finally, let's see. I think I'll go with Message. That's always convenient to be able to communicate silently between two particular groups of people. So that takes care of our cantrips. And I'm just going to shrink that just so that I can have a fairly large screen here to drop my spells into as I select them for our first level. In relation to your first level spells, there's a couple of things you'll want to pay attention to. One, the Arcane Trickster is restricted to some of the types of spells that they can choose. Most of your spells are going to come from the enchantment and illusion schools. At specific levels, you'll be able to choose spells that are outside of those schools. So first level, 8th level, 14th level, and 20th level. In all other cases, you have to choose enchantment or illusion spells. Now, how many do I get to choose? Well, it does tell you right there that we get a choice of 3 first level spells, 2 of which must be from the enchantment or the illusion spells, meaning that you can choose 2 enchantment, 2 illusion, or 1 illusion, 1 enchantment, in addition to that 1 spell of any category that you can choose from. You will know 3 spells, as per this particular table here, but you will only have 2 spellcasting slots. What that means is that you can only cast 2 first level spells before you have to take a long rest to regain those spell slots. So what are my options for first level spells? Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this list of cantrips. And I just click on the bar here, the black bar there, to do that. And what it does is it just shrinks it up. Now I can see all of the first level spells that I can go through and choose from. Now, enchantment. Okay, so that's Charm Person. So that takes care of that one. Sky Self's probably going to be useful. Yep, Illusion. Okay, so that takes care of the two schools that I have to select from. And choice between Magic Missile or Chromatic Orb. I think I'm going to choose Chromatic Orb just for something a little bit different. So those are going to be the spells I'm going to take for this particular character. And all I do is I just drop those into place by using this dragon icon or information icon if you're using a theme, and just simply dropping them into place. Once they're there, they are now accessible. However, you still got to prepare them. And what I mean by preparation is that you simply just have to make sure that there's a checkbox within each of these particular spells. You know them, you get to choose from them, and the limitation is going to be your spellcasting slots as opposed to how many spells you'll be able to cast based on these check marks. So when you go to combat, for example, you'll see that all of these spells are available. The only time they'll go away is when you've burned through all of your first level spell slots. And that's literally how spellcasting works with 5th edition. It's much more simplified than it was in the past. In addition to your spellcasting capabilities, you also get Mage Hand Legerdemain. I'm not entirely certain how to pronounce that. I've never been very good at stuff like that, but I think I got it pretty close. What this allows you to do is you get to choose to make the Mage Hand, when you cast that particular spell, invisible as opposed to being visible like it normally is. In addition, you can make use of one of these particular abilities here, on top of what you could normally do with Mage Hand. And that takes care of all of the changes that we have to do at level 3. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to upgrade to level 4 using the other methodology that I said was possible. Between your class level and your proficiency indicator here, there's a little magnifying glass, and if you click that, you get this window that pops open. This is normally how you would get back to the class that you're using in the event that you didn't want to have to go through one of these side buttons to reopen all the classes. Having said that, you can also make use of this to drag and drop this particular icon directly on top of this particular class window here, or this particular class entry here. And I meant entry here, not window. And either one will work. So I'm going to drop it here just to show you that it does in fact work. And as you can see, our level has gone up to level 4. In addition, we also gained this ability score improvement when we acquired level 4. And now what that actually means is that you can take one ability, and that's your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, and increase that ability by 2 points. Or you can take 2 abilities and increase each of those by 1 point. There is a third option, however, and that is going to be completely dependent on the Dungeon Master for your particular campaign. And what I mean by that is that the optional rule for feats within 5th edition is just that. It's optional. Not all Dungeon Masters like it. Some do, some don't. So you'll want to make sure that the Dungeon Master for your particular campaign will allow you to take a feat before you actually choose to take one. Feats can be found under this button here, and you will see a fairly large list of extra features, if you will, is what they really are, that you can choose from. The problem is some of these have restrictions, such as a minimum dexterity or minimum intelligence, the ability to cast spells, things along those particular lines. Some are even restricted to a particular class. So you'll want to make sure that you choose one that your character can actually make use of. Now, as in other videos I've already done for the rogue class, I'm going to increase my dexterity by 2 points, but there's something that I need to point out in relation to that. You cannot increase an ability past 20. You can only go as high as 20. That doesn't mean, however, you can't increase an ability that has been magically modified to be 20 or higher. So if I had a ring right now of +3 that modified my dexterity by those 3 points, that would put my dexterity at a 20 already. I can still increase my dexterity because the base value is 17. So I have the ability to add 3 more points to that before I can no longer add any additional points to it. And that would put my dexterity total at a total of 23. Now, obviously, this character is 3rd level, or 4th level, I should say. They're not going to have a +3 ring. But that's just an extreme example of how I've been showcasing when the restriction applies. This ability would have to be already at 20 in order for it to no longer increase. Now, I'm going to change this to 19. There will be a couple of things that do change, though. The dexterity save here will increase. In addition to that, any skill that depends on your dexterity will also increase by a particular point. So in this case, our stealth has gone up to 2 or 8, and our sleight of hand has gone up to +6, and our acrobatics has gone up to +6 as our bonuses. And anytime you go through and make a change on any one of these abilities, as long as the bonus itself has had an increase, you will see an increase in your proficient skills or your proficient saves. Additionally, there will be a point that I will showcase when we touch on Constitution. It does affect your hit points, the total number of hit points that you can add to it. And I will get to that a little bit later in the video. And that's everything that we have to do for level 4. So I'm going to go and choose the other method to show you how to do level 5. So I'm going to take this icon here and drag it all the way up and drop it onto this particular part of the class sheet, just so I can show you that it does in fact work. And as you can see, our total level has gone up. Now in this case, we acquired a new ability, but at the same time, we have also increased our proficiency bonus and our sneak attack damage. So I'm going to take care of the sneak attack damage first. Minimize that, just simply because I don't want to forget about it. It's one of those things that's quite easy to forget, and if you've watched my previous videos, you've probably seen that I have forgotten it a couple of times. In addition to that, our proficiency bonus has gone up, so our dexterity and our intelligence modifiers have gone up. In addition to that, any skill that we're proficient in will have also seen an increase in that particular ability. So in this case, we went up by 2 points. Yay! That's because it's double proficient here, so that's going to gain 2 points. In addition to that, we have also gained Uncanny Dodge. Okay, so let's go to our Abilities tab here and look for Uncanny Dodge. There we go. Now, Uncanny Dodge gives you the ability to essentially have the damage, and I mean half, as in reduce the amount of damage that is done against you when you apply that Uncanny Dodge capability. The restriction, though, is that you have to be able to see that particular creature that has attacked you. And that's a fair restriction, to be honest. You've got to be able to react to it, but you can only react to it if you can see it. So I'm going to take this Uncanny Dodge, and I'm going to drop it right into the Rogue category. Now, as you can see, it doesn't automatically group there, and I'm still frustrated as to why. Doesn't make any sense to me. In any event, just simply updating the group to be rogue, we'll drop it into the right category and get rid of the other one. Now, the reason I've dropped that into this particular actions tab is simply because when the DM hits you and then rolls the damage, you're going to want to make sure that you actually click on that to indicate to the DM you're making use of that particular ability. If they then ask you, well, can you provide me a description of it? All you have to do is drag and drop the icon into the chat window, and then they can open up Uncanny Dodge. That allows you to actually keep the flow of the game going without having to worry too much about it. So that takes care of everything at level 5. So in relation to level 6, I'm going to just simply drop that into place. We are not gaining any new proficiency bonus. We are not gaining any new sneak attack. Our hit points have gone up, as have our hit die. We are, however, gaining expertise. Wait a minute, we'd already gotten expertise at level 1. We covered that in the rogue grouping. Well, we're getting it again. If you open up the expertise ability here, you'll see that at 6th level, you can choose 2 more of your proficiencies in skills or with Thieves' Tools to gain this benefit. So when we first took this, we could have chosen to do 2 abilities, and specifically skills in this case, and become double proficient in them. But I chose to only become double proficient in stealth and still keep Thieves' Tool capability. In this case, I am now able to apply additional gains, if you will, when it comes to another ability here. And in this case, I'm going to choose Deception, become double proficient in that. And I'm going to do Persuasion. And the reason why is this particular character primarily relies on enchantment and illusionary magic. That can sometimes trigger a persuasion or a deception check. Most likely it's going to trigger a charisma check, but you get the point. The ability to make use of deception or persuasion is sort of in line with the ability to make a charisma check. You could rightfully have a player argue, or you as the player could argue, well, technically I'm trying to deceive this particular individual, so I want to make a deception check rather than just a charisma check. And some DMs will allow you to do it. It's up to the DM, but it does give you a point of argument that you can make use of. Okay, so that completes level 6. Let's go on to level 7. This time we're going to get evasion. So I'm going to drag that onto there. We are also gaining an additional sneak attack damage point here, so or die roll, if you will. I'm going to modify this. So we're now up to 4. You'll also notice that we have now acquired 2nd level slots. And I've intentionally not been choosing spells, because quite honestly, I don't need to go through that particular process. You as the player should be comfortable enough with how to choose spells. Just getting it into here and making use of them can be the learning part of it, if you will. So what about evasion? Well, evasion is going to drop under our expertise tab or abilities tab here. Let's drop that into place. So you can now nimbly dodge out of the way of anything. Some of you have seen me make use of this in previous videos if you've watched them. So I'm going to drop this into here. I'm going to put that under Rogue. Now, oops, not sure why Cunning Action has that, but anyway. Evasion, as it is set up by default in this particular Fantasy Ground setup, if you will, doesn't work. You have to actually make an adjustment to that. You do that by right-clicking anywhere along the evasion line, or in the case of if you have this expanded out, anywhere along here. What you want to do is add an action and then add an effect. The effect can be modified by clicking the magnifying glass that's on the far right. Interesting, that wasn't what I was expecting to have happen. There we go. Apparently I had to scroll up in the screen. And we want to add in evasion. It's going to target self, and it's going to expire on next action. We can also delete the other one because it's really not going to apply. So how do you as a player make use of that? Well, this comes into play in a combat scenario. So I'm going to very quickly just add this character to the combat tracker. Okay. Apparently I don't have a logo yet, but that's fine. I'm going to get rid of that one because we don't need him. And I'm going to get rid of the rogue. So under the combat tracker, you will see the Arcane Trickster that we're creating here. You'll also see a couple of bosses I've been using for previous videos. What will happen here is when the Dungeon Master makes an attack roll against you, they're going to hit. Or in this case, they're going to make you make a dexterity save. And that's the restriction on this particular feature, if you will. And it's a dexterity saving throw. Well, this one, the adult red dragon, has the ability to breathe fire. That is going to definitely trigger a dexterity save. And where did the breath weapon go? There it is. All right, so this red dragon is going to target you. In this case, the Arcane Trickster. So I have that particular setup already on the Dungeon Master side. On this side, I'm going to activate the evasion effect. And as we can see here in the combat tracker, I should say, this is now selected. I'm now going to breathe fire. And you are going to make a successful saving throw. And you can see here that the effect is gone from the combat tracker, but it's still being recorded by the system because it's making use of the evasion effect. So when I roll damage, 0 damage should hit this particular character, which is correct. That's the way it should work. Okay, so let's try to set it up so that we can actually get a failed saving throw. Now, in previous videos, I've been able to successfully roll the second time, and I keep forgetting that deselects you as the attackee, if you will. All right, this might be a failure. Perfect. Okay. So now you have failed. That means you're still going to take damage. But with evasion in play, you're still going to suffer a reduced amount of damage. All right. So let me roll the damage. You took half of that amount of damage, even though you failed the save. And if anyone who's been the recipient of a breath weapon or a fireball or something similar, if you recall, on a save, you normally take half damage. On a fail, you'd usually take full damage. So the Arcane Trickster ability, in this case it's a rogue ability, I should say, of evasion, definitely makes things a lot easier for a rogue to get out of very tricky situations. Okay, so let's circle back to the spellcasting stuff. Well, let's pop open spellcasting again. Let's open up Arcane Trickster, and we're at level 7. That means that I missed 4 levels for first level and possibly 1 for second level. Well, how do you know how many spells you acquire? You follow this particular table here. At 4th level, you gain knowledge of an additional spell and you gain an additional spell slot. You don't gain an additional spell until you get to level 7. So I've only really missed 1 spell. So I'm going to go ahead and select one now. And it has to be a first level. So I'm going to get rid of that. And if you recall, it has to be in the enchantment or the illusion schools. And we've already got Charm Person. I'll choose Color Spray in this particular case. Could potentially be useful. And this is a first level spell, so it's just going to drag and drop it right into there. But in the case of our 7th level, we now get to choose 1 additional spell, but that spell can be either first or second level. Okay, so let's choose a second level spell. That's Abjuration. That would be Necromancy. Blur would be an illusion. And you can see that I'm consistently minimizing these spell tabs, or all of these groupings, if you will, whenever I drop a spell into place. Again, that's just to prevent it from being dropped unintentionally in the wrong category. And it just simplifies things for you. Okay, so we are now caught up in our spells. On a go-forward basis, I'm going to leave that spellcasting window open just to remind me that I need to check to make sure that I didn't get a new spell. And as you can see, even though there's a high amount of automation within Fantasy Grounds, it is still possible to forget things. So having a checklist that you can look off of is highly useful in some cases. So with that, we're going to gain level 8. I'm going to drag and drop this into place. All right, now at level 8, we are gaining our next ability score improvement. Now I'm going to intentionally choose 2 abilities and increase one of them by 1 point and the other by another point. So our dexterity, I'm going to max out at 20. That's going to bring our dexterity up to a +5 bonus. Nice, okay. I'm going to start increasing the intelligence. I am now suffering only a -1 penalty. Yay. Okay, and that's because intelligence is an Arcane Trickster's primary spellcasting stat. And you want to start getting that particular ability up. I rolled a pretty poor character, to be honest, for an Arcane Trickster school, so it probably wasn't the best school to choose, but this is a demonstration video. It's not actually, this character is not actually going to get used anywhere, so I don't have to worry about it too much. Additionally, at level 8, we do gain another spell. And if you recall, we can choose a spell that's not restricted to the enchantment or the illusion schools. And that only happens at 8, 14th, and 20. All right, so because we have become level 8, I'm going to pop open the spell list again. And I'm going to choose a level 2 spell that's outside of that particular school. So let's go with... that's useful, but I want to intend... here we go. An evocation spell. Kind of want to be somewhat offensive when you're in combat, so having some offensive capabilities from a spell perspective could have some detrimental effect on the morale of the opposing party. It's always good. Okay, so that's everything we have to do for level 8. Let's do level 9. Let's go back here, drop our level onto there. We gain our next proficiency bonus, so we should now see that these two have gone up. And we should now see that these are starting to increase, and our persuasion capabilities have also gone up. All of our intelligence-based skills that are here, and in case you didn't know, you still do have the ability to use a skill that you're not proficient in, I should say. Proficient is a gold star. Double proficient is a double gold star. Half proficient is half of a gold star. But not proficient has no highlighted star. You can still use that. You just don't gain much in the way of a bonus. You just completely rely on your ability modifier to modify that particular skill. All right, so back on topic here, level 9. We do gain another hit die for our sneak attack. So let's modify that. Okay, done. Cunning action. Goblin. Fury the Small is keeping in line, so we're good there. Okay. Now, at level 9, we also gained our next Roguish Archetype feature. Now, Magical Ambush is the ability that we have acquired, or feature we have acquired. And essentially it gives you the ability that when you are hidden, so let's say you've managed to successfully hide in shadows, or you're invisible in some way, shape, or form, then whenever you cast a particular spell at a creature that you were hidden from, it gains disadvantage on any saving throw it has to make against that particular spell. So this is going to fall under our features group here. So I'm just going to minimize everything here to allow me the ability to do that. And this is Arcane Trickster. So I'm going to create an Arcane Trickster group. Now there's something here that didn't happen. There's really nothing there to indicate that this has an effect of any kind. Well, you're granting disadvantage on a saving throw. Okay, so let's add an ability or an action to that. It's going to be an effect, and it's going to be dis-save. It's going to be on, the target, and it's going to be on the next action or roll. Either one should work. So what does that actually mean? Well, let's say that I'm hidden from that goblin boss, and before I actually attack that goblin boss, I'm just going to quickly heal it up. Doesn't have a whole lot in the way of hit points. It only had 1 hit point left, actually. All right, so inside the combat tracker, I am going to target the goblin boss here. And I do that by control and then clicking on the icon here. Now that I have him selected, I'm going to apply the effect to him. And then I'm going to cast, where is it here? Chromatic Orb. So let's move this to preparation, action, combat, and action. Now, this should have granted disadvantage on saving throw. Why didn't it? Well, that's because you're actually making an attack. You have to throw a spell that requires a saving throw, not an attack. And I just wanted to be sure that someone saw that. Okay, so I can't really attack with a spell that requires an attack roll. I have to make one that has to actually trigger a saving throw roll. Well, Charm Person is perfect for that. Now you can see that it rolled 2 dice. It's still saved, which is bad. It means that your charm didn't kick into play, but it took essentially a disadvantage roll to do so. You don't see it on this particular screen here because you can't see the roll that was done on the Dungeon Master screen. But what I see is a red die roll, which tells me that it was a disadvantage roll. That tells me that your effect worked. That's great. On the player side, you'll see a double die roll. You won't just see one die roll. And I'll intentionally do that again. So right now, the Goblin Boss is still targeted, but I do not have the effect on that one, or on that boss, to indicate that it is no longer going to suffer disadvantage. So if I make the charm saving throw again, you see it only roll 1 die. Only rolled 1 die. Great. So that tells me it's working. All right. So that pretty much finishes everything up for level 9. So let's go to level 10. All right. Level 10 gives us our next ability score improvement. This time I'm going to choose a feature. And this time I'm going to choose a feature that is going to essentially be highly useful for a spellcaster. Now, remember when I indicated that requirements had to come into play for a feature? This would be an example of one of them. In this case, the person who's taking this, or the player who's taking this particular feat, has to have the ability to cast at least one spell. Well, an Arcane Trickster definitely qualifies. To add that feat, all you have to do is go to the Abilities tab and just drag and drop it into place. And you'll see it'll automatically drop into place there. Now let's have a quick look to see if it requires or gives you any actionable items. When you cast a spell, it requires you to make an attack roll. Spell is doubled. Okay. Your range. Okay. You learn 1 cantrip that requires an attack roll. Choose a cantrip as a bard, cleric. Okay. So this requires a little bit of clarification in a lot of ways. In my games, as someone who's acquired this particular feat, I will only allow that player to choose the cantrip from the school that they already know. And what that means is that because this person is casting spells essentially from a wizard's category, specifically those that are set aside for Arcane Trickster, you have to choose it from the list available to you within the Arcane Trickster spell list. That is how I, as a Dungeon Master, am going to rule in that particular scenario. If you're a cleric and you choose spell sniping, it makes sense you take a clerical spell. If you're a bard and you choose spell sniper, it makes sense that you're going to choose it from the bard grouping of spellcasting. Not that you're going to choose it from the wizard or a warlock grouping. It doesn't make sense for you to go cross those particular schools or lines of spellcasting capabilities because they're completely different. So you're going to choose it from the school or class you already understand. That's my argument against someone being able to take a bard and have them choose a warlock spell. Unless they're already allowed to do that by one of the features of that particular class or one of the features of the class specialization. That's how I will play that. And that's how I will actually rule on that in relation to a Dungeon Master. So with that in mind, I am going to... Now it has to be one that requires an attack. Okay, so that is a saving throw. It means you cannot take Acid Splash. Well, I might have already taken the only one that we could actually make use of here. However, let's see here. Okay, here we go. Chill Touch. That would be a spell, or a cantrip in this case, that I would allow you to take because it's one of the few that requires an actual attack roll. And if you look for the keyword ATK, or if you look for in the spell itself, spell attack, where is it here? On a hit. Okay, so make a ranged spell attack. So you're not triggering a saving throw. That means this applies. Okay, so does that complete level 10? We have done that, we have done that, we have done that. We are not gaining. No, 14 is the next one. And I saw 10th level up here, but I think that's just an example. Yeah, okay, so at 10th level is when you really gain your next cantrip. You'll notice that we really haven't been getting any cantrips. That's because we get one here. So in addition to the cantrip I just took, I can now take another cantrip. So the feat is giving me one, as is my class. All right, so is there a restriction on cantrips? Of your choice. Okay, so they're not restricting you to just illusion or enchantment cantrips in this particular case. So you get to choose whatever you want. So that's a divination. Let's go with Ray of Frost. That'll complement the Ray of Frost. Yeah, there you are. That'll complement the Firebolt quite nicely on the off chance that you run into a particular creature that is resistant to fire. Gives you variety. So that completes everything at level 10. So let's go back to the main tab, drop level 11 into place. Level 11 gives us an increase to our sneak attack damage. And as you can see, our actions tab here is getting a little bit more cluttered than our other thief specialization classes that we've run thus far. And that's normal for a spellcaster. They tend to fill up quite quickly. All right, what else? We gained reliable talent. All right. So reliable talent is quite a useful feature for a particular rogue. And essentially what it allows you to do is whenever you make an ability check that lets you add your proficiency bonus to it, you can treat any die roll of 9 or lower as a 10, essentially preventing you from totally failing that. You still might not necessarily pass if it happens to be a very difficult check that you're rolling against, but at least it gives you a better chance to essentially pass anything that would be classified as a normal check. Now, as a dungeon master, I will ask you as a player to add this to your actions tab. And again, oops, we need groups. It's simply so that if you make a call that you're going to actually go through and make use of that ability, that you have the ability to link it into place without having to go finding it or digging for it for too much effort or anything like that. And now it just allows me to go through and see, oh, yeah, okay, I now know what that does. Yeah, sure, that's fine. And very quickly keep the game flow moving forward as opposed to having to go look something up and then waiting for somebody to go find it and all that jazz. Now, does that complete everything at level 11? Well, do we gain any more spell slots? Level 11? Yes, we do. In fact, we gained one at 10 and we gained one at 11. So, how many spells do I currently know? I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so I am now missing 2 spells. Additionally, we don't gain level 3 until we hit 13th, so it still is either a first or second level spell. Okay, so let's pop this open. So I'm going to add 2 second level spells. And remember, they have to be from the arcane, or the illusion, sorry, and the enchantment groupings. I already have blur and that. What about darkness? That is evocation. Dark vision, that's transmutation. Large reduce is transmutation. Necromancy, gust of wind, that's evocation. Okay, so hold person. And invisibility, that is illusion, so I might as well take it. Alright. Excellent, so that catches us up on our spells. And that completes everything for level 11, so let's move on to 12. let's go to 12. Okay, that's increasing okay. At 12, we gain our next ability score improvement, and I am going to dump both points into intelligence. And then at 12, we gain nothing new here. So level 12 is a fairly easy level up, which sets us up for level 13. Okay, level 13. We gain more damage for our sneak attack capability, so that's now 76, yep. All right. So we also gain our next roguish feature, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And in addition to that, we gain another spell, and it can be a level 3 spell at this point. So level 3. Minimize, minimize, minimize. We are still restricted, which means that we have to take one from enchantment or illusion. That would be transmutation. That would be evocation. That's a highly useful one, by the way. That's transmutation. Anyhow, feign death, mirror image, that's going to be illusion. Yep, okay. I'm going to minimize those just to give myself enough room to drop that into place. Okay, that takes care of our spell. So let's go back to our new roguish feature, which in this case should be Versatile Trickster. So yes, that's Versatile Trickster. And essentially what this gives you the ability to do is, as a bonus action, on your turn, you can choose a target that is within 5 feet of your spectral hand. Not clear as to whether you can move that hand first and put it into place. I do believe the rules will still apply in relation to hand movement. But what it does give you the ability to do is make an advantage on any attack roll against that creature until the end of the turn. And it only applies to you, so it's not going to apply to the whole party. Alright, so this is going to be an Arcane Trickster feat. It's going to drop into a new power, so let's move it down. Alright, so what we want to do is ensure that we attack with advantage. So, what we can do is add a new action, make it an effect, and let's do this. ATK. Let's do that on self and on next action. So, let's see how that works. Go back to the combat tracker. I still have the goblin boss targeted, so I'm going to make an attack roll after granting myself this effect. Alright, and let's see. So yes, one, the effect has gone away, which means it's successfully applied to our attack roll. The second is that you see this green button here. That means that we rolled with advantage. And you can see that as well, that the ADV here means that we applied an attack with advantage on that. We dropped the 13 and kept the 20. So this is interesting, plus 9, 29. So we rolled... Why is that showing a 19 there? Ah, it rolled a 19, so we're adding 10. Yeah, okay. Good. Sometimes I forget how to read those. Anyway, having said that, so we now know that this will actually work. Well, how do you indicate to the DM that you're going to make use of that? Well, first thing you're going to do is you're going to role play out the fact that you're going to move your mage hand around on the next round if you've already got the mage hand there, or if a creature has moved within 5 feet of your mage hand prior to your round going, you now have the ability to state, I am going to use Versatile Trickster. Click. There we go. Okay, can I see that? Yep, here you go. That's now there. That's going to give me advantage on any attack roll that I make against that particular creature. So I'm going to grant myself advantage, and then I'm going to make my attack roll. That's how you would make use of that particular feature. Okay, so that's level 13. Do we gain anything else? Level 13, we've already done our spell, so we're good there. Level 14. Okay, so level 14, we are gaining an additional spell, and if you recall, it is one of the ones that we can choose a spell from a non-enchantment or illusionary school. So I'm going to go to level 3, and I'm going to give someone 1 second to determine which spell I'm thinking of taking. Oh boy. An Arcane Trickster with a Fireball. That's going to surprise the crap out of somebody. Now, what else do we have to do? There's something I've been intentionally forgetting, and that is the preparation phase. In all cases, Arcane Tricksters have the ability to practically cast all of the spells that they know. So all you have to do is make sure that you have a checkbox there, and they will go away when you actually burn through all of your spell slots. So it's not overly powered in my opinion. All right. Okay, so that takes care of that. Level 14. We also gain Blind Sense. So Blind Sense is a nice little ability. For those of you who are not sure what Blind Sense allows you to do, it essentially gives you the ability to make yourself aware of any hidden or invisible creature that is within 10 feet of you as long as you can hear. So you'll hear their footfalls, you hear they're scraping up against a wall, and that's how a DM is going to present it to you. You'll probably have the explanation. You hear a subtle shifting behind you. Okay, turn around, you don't see anything. Well, it essentially prevents you from being surprised. To a certain degree, you can still get surprised if you can't necessarily hear that particular individual or creature. But it definitely would, in my mind, give you an advantage on a surprise check. And I think that's a really good thing. So it balances out that ability quite well. Having said that, anyone who's over 10 feet further away from you, so outside the 10-foot range, if they decide to scrape up against a wall, you're not going to know that they're there because they're outside of that extended range of hearing, if you will. They can still attack you and gain advantage on whatever rolls that they're going to have against you, and they are also going to potentially have the ability to surprise you. So there is still that balance. Within 10 feet, you're almost perfectly aware of what's going on when you're conscious. And that's going to be the key. If you are able to hear and you are conscious, this will apply. Sleeping is a lower form of consciousness in my mind. However, if it's magically induced sleeping or you're knocked unconscious, you're not going to hear them. But if it's just normal sleeping, you're in your camp, you're bedded down for the night, you're going to hear them, in my opinion. You might have an advantage on that check for your perception roll, in my opinion. That may be something that would be how I would play it as a DM. Now you're going to want to make sure that that is set up on your actions tab as per usual. So I'm going to go back and reopen that, and I did that intentionally because I wasn't getting this little icon here. All right, so drop this into place. Things are going a wee bit screwy here, and I'm not sure why. Okay, so let's delete this. Let's open up Blind Sense again. Go back to here. There we go. And that is a rogue ability, so that'll drop it under the rogue category. And again, that's just so that you can make the DM aware that you're going to make use of that or have that ability. That's all it comes down to. And that completes level 14. So level 15, we now gain additional damage in our sneak attack. So we're up to 8 die 6 of damage here. Oops, that should be an 8, not a 6. Brain heard the word 6 and said, "Yep, that's a 6." We've already regained gained a proficiency bonus at level 13, so I forgot to cover that. But anyway, we're going to gain the ability of Slippery Mind. Now, what Slippery Mind gives us is an additional proficiency bonus in our save, in one of our save abilities here. So Slippery Mind, move that over to here. So at 15th level, you have acquired greater mental strength. You gain proficiency in wisdom saving throws. Well, right now, our wisdom saving throws are suffering a -2 penalty. All we have to do is change that from not proficient to proficient. And we're now gaining a +3 to our saving throws when it's a wisdom saving throw. That's all you have to do. That's the adjustment that you have to make. But in addition to that, we do not gain any additional spells. So we don't have to worry about anything else that we have to do. Level 16 is essentially an ability score improvement, and we gain another spell. So, and it's still only level 1 through 3. So let's start with the spell first. Scroll back up here. I don't know why I keep closing this. 2, 3. This does fall under our restriction, so it has to be enchantment or illusion. Counterspell, that's abjuration. And you might actually come to a point where you do not have a spell that you can choose from. I have seen that actually happen in some cases for other schools. Okay, so that's a level 3 spell. It is now in our... There it is. Okay, so that takes care of that. And we gain an ability score improvement. Again, I'm going to dump points into intelligence, just to start improving that capability, because that is our spellcasting requirement. And that should complete level 16. Level 17 requires a couple of things here. We're going to gain our final roguish archetype feature, so we'll have to deal with that. We do have to deal with our damage for sneak attack. So we are now up to 96 damage. We have also gained our last proficiency bonus at level 17, so you are not going to gain any additional proficiency bonuses there. So whatever saving throws you now have here for bonus points, that's what you're going to get, and same with the skills. So your stealth checks, that's a +17 bonus. Nice. Your persuasion is now a +14, as is your deception. So there, you've got some pretty good abilities there now and skills. All right, roguish archetype. So Spell Thief is a very nice ability. And essentially, what it allows you the ability to do is steal a spell from a particular creature. And that doesn't have to be restricted to a wizard spell. So this is Arcane Trickster. Okay, got that right. It does properly provide us with nothing. I got myself confused between these two. What Spell Thief gives you the ability to do is if you are on the receiving end of a particular spell, and that spell happens to be between levels 1 and a level that you can cast. So the maximum spell level that you as a Arcane Thief will be able to cast is 4. That means if someone casts a level 5 or higher spell against you, this will not apply. You will not necessarily recognize the level of that spell at the time that you call out that you're going to use Spell Thief. However, the Dungeon Master will most likely roleplay that particular aspect of a failed check against a higher spell. It just come along the lines of it didn't take effect. But what's going to happen is you're going to essentially make a saving throw with that creature. So the creature that is casting that spell is going to have to make a saving throw. When they fail, it's going to negate that particular spell's effect against you, and you steal the knowledge of that spell. It will reside in your memory for up to 8 hours. That creature will also not be able to cast that spell for up to 8 hours. That is a really nice ability. So if you've run across a particular creature that is just absolutely hammering the crap out of your party, and then they target you with a particular spell that is sort of the executioner of that hammering, if you will, you can potentially steal that spell away from them and take their most powerful weapon from them, as long as it's between level 1 and 4. Now in this case, this particular character has not gained the ability to cast level 4 spells yet. So by the time you gain Arcane Trickster, you're still only able to intercept or steal level 1 through 3 spells. That's sort of a restriction. But by the time you hit 19 and 20, you'll be able to start stealing level 4 spells. But the thing that I don't like about this particular spell is it didn't set up the actual dice check roll, and that is your spellcasting capability. Well, if you recall, our spellcasting capability is intelligence. All right, so we can actually set something up here. What we can do is we can right-click on this particular spell, add an effect, and I believe it is a cast. Yes. And it's going to be a saving throw. And as far as I am aware, that should apply by default. So, hang on. Let's see. That's going to be the 8 plus ability, and the stat is intelligence. So this is the easiest way to go through and set up. So it's 8 plus your proficiency bonus, which is here, plus your intelligence modifier, which is here. And the other option is you could do that. Oops. Let's just see something here. Get back to that. Yeah, that feels right. So it's an intelligence saving throw. Or is it? DC equals... Okay, in this case, yes, it would be an intelligence because you are the one trying to steal the spell, and your spellcasting ability is intelligence. All right, so it's going to be an intelligence check of DC that, and it's going to be plus your intelligence modifier. Okay. So I would say DC 15 seems accurate. So they have to succeed against an intelligence saving throw of 15 or higher. So how did that actually work? Well, let's go back to our lovely combat tracker. I've still got this target selected, so I'm going to make that goblin boss. And if we go here to actions, we should see that we now have a saving throw. Combat and actions. So I'm going to trigger a saving throw versus 15. Somehow they succeeded for Goblin Boss versus the Arcane Trickster. What did they roll? They rolled a 19. All right, let's do it again. They rolled a 20 in that particular case. Blimey. All right, this time it's a failure. So essentially in this particular case, if that Goblin Boss was casting a particular spell, this is classified as a reaction. I just want to be clear on one particular thing, on how reactions work. So if you take a look here, immediately after the creature casts a spell that targets you or includes you in its area of effect, you can use a reaction to force your creature to make a saving throw with its spellcasting ability modifier. What this means, and I'm referring to the reaction, not the actual check here. The full order of an action within a round is your movement, your attack and or spell attack, your bonus actions, and then you can react. And that would include attacks of opportunity. That would include reactions. So those are generally the 4 things you can do within combat. Here's the thing. If you've already used a reaction, you cannot use that reaction again that round. You can find that by going to your library, Player's Handbook, open up the reference manual, expand this out, and search for reaction. What you're looking for is the order of combat, and right down near the bottom, you will see reactions. Certain special abilities, spells, and situations allow you to take a special action called a reaction. A reaction is an instant response to a trigger of some kind which can occur on your turn or on somebody else's. The opportunity attack, described later in this chapter, is the most common type of reaction. When you take a reaction, you can't and that is cannot take another one until the start of your next round. If the reaction interrupts another creature's turn, that creature can continue its turn right after the reaction. So essentially, if you are on the receiving end of a particular spell that has been cast, let's say Fireball, you're included in that damage, which means you can execute Spell Thief as your reaction. Only if you haven't already used an attack of opportunity or other form of reaction your round or throughout any other turn or round within that turn. So essentially, you get to potentially force that spellcaster to make their attack roll, or saving throw, I should say, against your particular stealing of that spell. If they fail, you get the spell. They can't cast that spell again for 8 hours. You, however, can on your next turn if you wanted to. You can fire it back at them. But at the same time, if they still have bonus actions or if they still have movement, they still get the ability to do that. So that's how that whole thing would play out. So let's use this goblin boss as an example. I've already rolled for their failed saving throw. So let's say somehow he has the ability to cast a fireball. You've stolen it, but he hasn't finished his movement. And he might actually get an attack bonus, or another attack if he has multiple attacks, such as a bonus attack. If they decide to move within your sphere of influence and attack you, you cannot react to that. You will not have any other reaction that you can make use of. Other party members might. Now, if that goblin boss moves into your sphere of influence, you've already executed the sniper thief or spell thief spell or feature. If that goblin boss moves within your sphere of influence and then decides to move back out, you will not be able to take the attack of opportunity against that particular goblin boss, or any other creature for that matter, because you've already used reaction to steal his spell or her spell. That's how that would play out. So that is something that a DM is going to be very picky on and very specific on. So you really need to understand how that function works as a reaction. And that goes for any spell or any ability that is a reaction. In addition to the benefits that Spell Thief gives us, there's one restriction on it. If you recall, it requires a long rest before you can use it again. So what that means is that you need to increase, under preparation, you need to set this as 1 uses per day. And that will force a long rest before you can actually make use of that. So if we switch to combat, you'll see that we now have a pip here. Well, if I now use that, it's done until you complete a long rest. So if I execute a long rest over here, let me open up this, do a rest. If I do a short rest, you'll see it doesn't come back. But if I do a long rest, it returns, giving you the ability to use it again. So, do we gain anything else in relation to spellcasting? No. And what about... Okay, 20th level is when we gain our last one. All right. So that completes level 17. Let's move on to level 18. So level 18, we still do not gain any new spells. We do not gain anything here, but we do gain elusive. So elusive is a nice little feature. Beginning at level 18, you are so evasive that attackers rarely gain the upper hand against you. No attack roll has advantage against you while you aren't incapacitated. So as long as you are coherent and able to react to something, essentially, you have the ability to give disadvantage to anyone who has an advantage roll against you, essentially negating each other out. To make use of that, just drag it onto... One thing I have found about a character sheet, when you get a large number of minimized abilities, they can sometimes go screwy when it comes to the grouping. So let's just delete that again. Minimize, minimize, minimize. Come on, minimize. Drop that into place. Still, oh, my bad, I had actions. That was my bad. All right, this is a rogue feature, and I know I misspelled rogue. Okay, so it's going to drop into there. Now, elusive does give you the ability to grant disadvantage on an attack roll against you. But only in the sense that you are negating advantage against you. So, oops, this is going to be a target, and it's going to be on next action. Actually, that's going to be self. What this means is that the DM is going to have to tell you that they are going to be attacking you with advantage. You then have the ability to say, oh, 1 second, DM, I need to activate my elusive capability, and you're going to grant yourself the grant disadvantage on attack rolls. Now, how that's going to work is that when I use, let's do the dragon. Okay, so multi-attack. I'm going to temporarily give the dragon advantage when it comes to their bite attack. Some scenario might have put it in a position where it has advantage on you for some reason. But when I make that attack roll, you'll see it has only rolled 1 die, and you just did grayed out shadow of it. And that's because I was able to make use of the elusive ability to cancel out the advantage. And just to show you that that's actually how that worked, if I click advantage again and make an attack roll, you'll see that there are 2 attack rolls, or attack die that got rolled there, not just the one that we saw prior. However, this isn't going to apply if someone doesn't have advantage to you. So you can't say, I'm going to use my elusive ability for someone who's just attacking without advantage against you. It doesn't apply. It's not going to give them disadvantage in any way, shape, or form. That is something I didn't clearly explain in my previous videos, and someone is kind enough to point it out to me. So I will cover it in this video, obviously. Beyond that, there is nothing else we really have to do for level 18. Level 19. Well, let's see. We're going to gain our final ability score improvement. So level 19, I'm going to bring this up to 14, giving us a +2 bonus. Nice. So that has definitely increased our intelligence bonuses. And has definitely increased our intelligence saving throw. Level 19, we gain our second to last spell. And we now have the ability to choose a level 4 spell. So let's go do that. In addition, we also have our sneak attack damage. So let's get that done first. So that's now going to be 10. This will be our last sneak attack damage point increase. We don't have to worry about that anymore. We are going to choose a level 4 spell. So cantrips level, there we go. As you can see, selecting from this list is better because there's nothing below level 4 in relation to the listing of spells here. This spell is still restricted to the enchantment or the illusionary spell, though. So we still have to make sure that we choose one of those. I'm going to choose Greater Invisibility, just for kicks. Okay, so that takes care of our second last spell that we will know. And I'm going to go to Preparation and add that to the prepared list. Okay, so that finishes level 19. Level 20 is our last level. So we are now at level 20. We are going to gain our last spell here. All right, so it also is a spell that doesn't fall within the restriction. We can now choose it from any school. So what's useful at level 4? Private Sanctum is kind of useful. Wall of Fire can be kind of useful. Dimension Door can be kind of useful. Tough choice. I'm going to go with Wall of Fire. Okay, so that takes care of our spells. So that is all of the spells our character is going to be able to learn in relation to this. Now, it doesn't mean you can't add additional spells to your spell book. It just means you won't be able to know them. So if you add a 3rd level, let's say you discover a scroll and you transcribe that scroll for a level 3 spell into your spell book, because that's essentially what this is. What you would then have to do is, if you have the ability to know 3 spells, you would then have to deselect one and choose the other spell. So that's how that would actually work. Now, I'm not entirely certain whether an Arcane Trickster can actually scribe a spell into their spell book. That would be a ruling from Dungeons and Dragons that I would look for. But I would kind of allow it as a DM in some cases if I'm in a very good mood. Also at level 20, we gain the ability for Stroke of Luck. Now, in relation to Stroke of Luck, we go to Abilities, we open up Stroke of Luck. There's a bit of a use restriction on this, but essentially, at level 20, you have an uncanny knack for succeeding when you need to. If your attack misses a target within range, you can turn that miss into a hit. Alternatively, if you fail an ability check, you can treat the D20 roll as an automatic 20. However, it will not be classified as a critical, as I understand it. I don't believe that actually applies as critical. But you have to finish a short or a long rest in order to make use of the skin. So it's not completely overpowered, which means it requires you to drop it into the actions grouping here. So this is a rogue ability. Okay. And it requires you to set up a preparation. So if I'm going to move this up a bit so you can see this, but down here I'm setting this to preparation. Preparation allows you to make an adjustment to these particular settings here. It's going to be 1 use, and it's going to be on a rest. When you leave this as daily, it means that you need to complete a long rest. When you set this as rest, you can do a short or a long rest, and it will return back to being able to be useful. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I use Stroke of Luck here, it's now gone until you've rested. If I execute a short rest for the party, or for this particular player, you see that it returns. Well, if I use it again, and then I execute a long rest, you see that it returns. That's what that rest capability does under preparation. That's what this allows you to set up and prepare. And that's it. That is literally the only thing you have to do in order to set this up. In addition, that now completes the leveling of this particular character from level 3 through to level 20. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. I wish to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video. I hope you found it informative and useful to familiarizing yourself with Fantasy Grounds in general, and that you had fun in the process. If you found the video useful and you liked the content of the particular video, go ahead and click that like button to let me know. And if you have any questions specific to the topic covered by this particular video, or just have some comments in general, please feel free to post something in the comments section, and I will do my best to respond to any questions that are asked. Additionally, I do release content quite regularly, and it's generally specific to Fantasy Grounds or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at this time. So if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell to ensure that notification is sent to you when I release a new video.